G'day all you wonderful people, welcome to Adventure Together. My name's Al and today we are having a look at my sleep system, what I used on the Appalachian Trail. So this is my sleep system, a hammock and all of the components that go with it. So one question to answer first is why I chose a hammock over a tent. So I've been tent camping for years and years and I never hammock camped before. So why would I choose a hammock when I'm about to depart on the longest trail that I've ever done in my life? I wasn't really a big fan of tents. I never really sleep well when I'm in them. So I started researching hammocks and I found that people were saying lots of good things about them, like that you got much better sleep in them, it was much more comfortable. You were able to set up anywhere, even if it was on a slope like we're on at the moment, or you were able to set up over hard ground, or if it was rocky, it didn't really matter. So you had a bit more kind of leeway with what was going on. On trail, I actually found it to be different. You know, sometimes the two perfect hammock trees don't really exist and there's a lot of compromises. Sometimes the ground is full of brush and there's lots of things growing there, so it doesn't really make for good hammock spots. But overall, I found that I really enjoyed using the hammock on the Appalachian Trail. It was really comfortable to sleep in and I couldn't recommend sleeping in a hammock more to anyone who's thinking about it. The trade-offs are that you are carrying more components and you are carrying a bit more weight. If you're carrying an underquilt and a top quilt, that's twice the quilt weight that you've got. You've got all the harnesses, tree straps, carabiners, things like this that you don't have to carry when you have a tent. The only thing that you don't have to carry that people who sleep in a tent do are the sleeping pads. But for me, I found that compared to people who were sleeping in a tent, I was carrying a lot more things to make up the hammock system than they were with their tent system.
So let's have a look at the components of my sleep system. In the bottom left you have my hammock, which is a Dream Hammocks Darian in 11-foot length because I'm just over 6 foot tall. Then you'll see the tree straps, which are wrapped up there with two carabiners. Those carabiners are used for attaching the hammock to the tree straps, and to the right of that you'll see a little bundle of tie-out straps which are for pulling the hammock wide open when I want to sit in it instead of it bundling up on me. In the top left you can see my top quilt. That is from Enlightened Equipment. That's the Apex Custom, which is a synthetic quilt, which is why it's so big. It doesn't crush down quite as much as down does. It also doesn't suffer from the problems with wet weather, so it's fine if it gets wet. You don't have to worry about all the fill bundling up, and also it's cruelty free. On the top right, that big bundle of green is my underquilt, which goes under the hammock to wrap around you and keep you warm. Then in the bottom right is my tarp. My tarp is made from Dyneema fabric and is from Hammock Gear. And then that little thing in the white little case is my underquilt protector, which keeps the underquilt from touching the ground and being dirty. So I would keep all of my tree straps, my carabiners and my tie-outs inside a Ziploc bag, so they were all together and I didn't have to worry about where they were. They don't need to be waterproof, but this is more like keeping it, just making sure I was keeping it all together in one place. And I always knew to check it before I left camp that I had two carabiners, my three tree straps. I have two that I use and one spare that I found in a hiker box, and I've got my two tie-out strings. As long as I checked that I had two of everything, I was good to go, and I wasn't going to get 20 miles down the trail and realise when I got to camp, oh no, one of my tree straps is still attached to the tree at my last camp.
So to start off with, I'm going to show you how I set up the hammock between these two trees. I've got a nice clear path between them, so it seems like it's the perfect place to set up. First of all, I've got to make sure that this is the right distance apart. To measure out, I would usually get my two trekking poles fully extended and put one on one tree and reach out with another. If I had about 18 inches on the end of my trekking pole as a gap, I thought that was about the perfect length for me. I've already measured this out by pacing it out. It's about 5 or 6 large steps. So this is a perfect distance for me to set up a hammock. So the first thing I do is I get my tree straps. These have loops on both ends, here, and I'll wrap one side around the tree, and that will go around as many times as it needs to leave a little bit of slack on the end. Then I feed it through the other loop here, pull it tight, and that's my tree strap ready to attach the hammock to. When tying your tree strap up, it is important that the loop here holding the tree strap is on the same side as it's going to go around the tree here. So as your weight comes up, all of the weight is on the back of the tree and not the loop. If you were to have the loop over here, let's say, your weight would be coming through the strap, hitting the loop, and then transferring off at a right angle, and all of the weight would be on the loop here and this stitching instead of it being on the tree as it is now. So when you tie up your tree strap, make sure that this loop end here that's securing your tree strap is on the same side as the tree strap running round the back of the tree. If it's over that side, no good. That side, it's all good. Now we've got a small tree here, that's okay, we can keep going round and take some of the slack off of this, but just imagine you've got a big tree and you've only managed to take your strap round once and you've still got this slack left. Not enough to go round another time, but too much for your hammock to fit between the space of the two trees. What you can do is you can take your strap and you can make a loop like that, just putting this bottom side over the top of that. You can fold the loop up and you can take something like a stick, or what I used was one of my carabiners. I would put it on the middle, pull that tight, and there I've got a knot that I can use to put the Whoopie sling of my hammock over the top of this. Now I place that Whoopie sling on the knot. I don't put it on the carabiner. Not that it would do the carabiner any harm, but putting it on the knot there is plenty secure, and the more I pull on it, the tighter it gets. Then I take the Whoopie sling through the gate and I have the Whoopie sling here against all of the weight of the tree strap, and the carabiner is just holding that knot in place. When I have to remove the hammock in the morning to pack up, I just open the gate, move the Whoopie sling out, easy done, and then I move the knot around, again open up the gate of the carabiner, and magically the knot is undone and you can just remove the tree strap. Easy peasy. So I've mentioned a Whoopie sling, and lots of different hammocks have different ways of suspending themselves. It's called their suspension system, and I chose the Whoopie sling because for me it was the easiest. If I need to adjust this, it's literally just pinching here and pulling up. If I need to let it down, I go to the other end of the loop, as if by magic I can let it down. So that for me was the easiest way to do it, without any knots, without any little buckles or anything like that. Just cinch and uncinch. So now I have the hammock set up. It's nice and horizontal. What's important when you set up the hammock is to not put too much strain on the suspension. Is up here, you've got to make sure that you've got a perfect 45-degree angle. This is how I measure it. My hand is a pointer. I put it on here like that, and if it's perfect, the string will match. And we go to the other side, and it matches there as well. So if it's too high up at too flat of an angle, it will put too much strain on the hammock and the suspension will be compromised. So that's why we get that and use that as a rough kind of guide, so that we get the hammock set up in the perfect way, so not to put too much strain on the materials and the suspension system. So once you have it set up like this, you will just need to give it a little sit in and see if it holds. and also you're high enough off the ground. Because sometimes I found that when I sit in it, the straps seem to slip down off the trees a little bit, and that can put you too close to the ground. But this looks about perfect. So we're ready to dress the hammock, put the underquilt on, the underquilt protector, put the quilt inside so that we're ready to sleep. Something I used was these tie-outs. Very long. They've got a loop on each end, and I would loop them to the hooks on the hammock and pull out and put a tent stake in, and that would be used to pull the hammock wide so it's not bunched up around me when I slept. The hammock's now set up completely. I've got the underquilt protector on here, the underquilt is underneath. Then inside I've already put my top quilt. So now I'm just going to show you a quick trick of how I do my pillow. I take the stuff sack for my top quilt. When I'm going to bed, I take off my puffy and I put it into the stuff sack. And then because of that, I'm now able to create a little pillow that I don't have to carry any extra weight. I've already got all the materials for it. And that's my pillow for the night. Nice and soft. And I can throw that in there when I'm ready for bed. One thing that I got out of a hiker box that I started carrying with me was a polythene sheet. This one was a garden bag for putting all your garden waste in. And I used to lay that like a doormat outside of my hammock, and I would put my backpack and my shoes on it so that if it was raining and I had my tarp up, my pack and everything else would be protected from the rain, but any water coming downhill also wouldn't touch the bottom of my pack, making it soaking wet in the morning. If there was not a chance of rain, like tonight, we have a beautiful sky here, I wouldn't normally set up the tarp. But if it was going to rain, obviously you've got to have some way of keeping the rain off of your hammock. So we're going to set up the tarp. The tarp's now up, and this will keep me dry in the night and also keep the crosswinds off of my hammock and keep me a little bit warmer from those winds. So my tarp here is a Dyneema tarp. It's from Hammock Gear and it's called the winter tarp with doors. You can either get Dyneema or you can get sil poly or you can get sil nylon types of tarp. Dyneema is much more expensive, but it is much lighter than sil poly and sil nylon, and it's a little bit more waterproof. It doesn't let water through, and it's very much stronger as well. It's got a very high tensile strength. Apparently that this was developed for use on sailboats, so it really is something that's light, durable and waterproof. Sil poly and sil nylon tarps do pack a lot smaller and are a lot cheaper than Dyneema, but that's at the expense of not being as waterproof, not being as strong, and being slightly heavier. One other negative that I found about Dyneema compared to sil poly and sil nylon is that it's not very opaque, so it doesn't really give you a huge amount of privacy. If I show you what I mean, I'll duck under here and you should be able to still see me moving around. So if I'm sitting in the hammock and I'm trying to get changed in here, you might be able to still see a few things that you wouldn't want to see normally. As you can see at the moment, I've got the doors closed, but if I was to take these loops out, and now I've just opened up the doors so that if I wanted a nice summer breeze to blow in, it could. From this angle you can see what it looks like. You've got the tarp in an A-frame over the top of the hammock. That way you're sat out of the rain. Something I wanted to also show you was these tie-outs. Every single one of the tie-outs around the hammock has Lawson's Glowire in this luminous lime, they say. And the reason I've got that is, first, it's very heavy duty, really high tensile strength on it, and it fits these line locks really well. I've heard that smaller gauge tie-outs tend to slip a little bit. I had no problems with these. A really good thing about these is they glow when you shine light on them in the dark. So if you're walking around with your head torch at night and you're in camp and you've gone for a midnight wee, as you come back, you won't trip over your guy lines because they're glowing in the dark. That also means that if somebody else comes into camp late at night and they happen to be looking for a place to set up tent, they won't be setting it up on your guy lines or knocking them out the way or tripping over them.
So when I ordered my tarp, I ordered it with these Linelocs, which you just feed your wire through like that, and this loose end here you can just pull and cinch. When you lift up, you can pull the wire through and it cinches tighter, or you can loosen it off and give yourself a bit more slack. And once it returns to this position, you can't pull the wire through, it's locked there.
To continue the simplicity of my system, I've got this line running from the tarp that goes around the tree and attaches to this very small carabiner. So there's no knots involved. There's no weight on the tarp really. So it doesn't matter that I've got this small carabiner here. It's just kind of holding that from slipping back. And that line runs down here to a line lock on the end of the tarp. And so if I need it tighter, I can just pull that. And if I need it looser, I just loosen it off like this and I get a bit more slack on the tarp. Now, if I've got up and it's first thing in the morning and I want to pack this all away, there's a certain way of doing it. If it's raining, usually you take down your hammock first and then leave the tarp up so that nothing's getting wet. But in a normal day like this where it's not raining, I will then start with the tarp and move on to the other components, sort of going in a reverse order of how I packed it up the night before. So that's it. That's the summary of my sleep system and all of the parts that go with it. So if there's anything I haven't covered or I've left you with some questions, just shoot me a comment in the comment section below and I will get round to answering everything I can. If you found this video informative and it helped you out with any hammocking queries that you've got, then please like the video, subscribe as I do have more content coming out, and make sure to share the channel with anyone you know that's interested in through hiking, camping or adventure travel. And for now, that's it from me. Thank you for joining me and I'll see you in the next one. Good day all you wonderful people, welcome to Adventure Together. My name's Al and today we're going to have a look at my sleep system that I used on the Appalachian Trail.